I think he can be. Yeah, I'm a big believer in what he can do.
All right. Don't forget, Brian Baldinger will be with us at 5:30, but we love talking and catching up with our friend Randy Cross, the owner of 3 Super Bowl rings. He joins us right now. How you doing, brother? How's it all going, man?
Doing good, Dan. Doing real good. Yeah, the NFL this year is going to be an interesting deal after that draft.
How about this, too? You know what I said? Everyone goes like this. Well, this stuff is computer generated. I went, yeah, right. So, wait. Kansas City opens with Lamar Jackson, then plays Burrow next. I don't think that's computer generated. I'm doing it this way, Randy. Last year, because remember Cincinnati and the Jets, it was at the end of the season that one of those guys, Rodgers or Burrow, were playing, and you had a bunch of nobodies in the game. You're going to see more front-end games in this schedule this year, in my opinion, because the NFL wants to maximize ratings.
Yeah, well, it might be computer generated, but the computers are owned by the networks and Madison Avenue. They know who they want to see. They know where they want to see them, and it behooves the NFL to give the people paying all that money what they want.
Randy, I got to ask you right out of the gate, after what you've seen for 3 seasons with Jalen Hurts, do you believe that Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback?
I mean, he's easily a top 10 quarterback. He's got the potential, with the right guys around him. How he adjusts to kind of that O-line minus Kelsey and whatnot, how he's going to adjust to that. He's going to have a lot of fun turning around and handing that ball to Barkley. That's going to be a lot of fun. But I think he can be. Yeah, I'm a big believer in what he can do.
What is a loss like Jason Kelsey mean to a quarterback like Jalen Hurts? And just to expand on that a little bit, Randy, Kelsey came out last week and said, one of the things that Jalen still struggles with a little bit is interior pressure. And he kept turning around and telling him where to expect the pressure from, yet he still struggled. Now, he's still young in the process here. So he's still got to remember that a little bit here. But how much is that going to affect him when it comes to a guy who's not as experienced and Cam Jurgens taking over that role?
Yeah, it's face pressure is something. I don't even know how many great veteran quarterbacks are nuts about face pressure. I mean, you played with and against some pretty good quarterbacks. How many of them like that A and B gap pressure? I mean, that was the one thing that the New York Giants exposed about Tom Brady is if you can pressure into those A and B gaps, you just can't get rid of the ball fast enough. If your coverage is right when you're getting that kind of pressure in the middle. So I don't know. I think he doesn't like it, but I don't know many that do.
How about this too, Randy? One thing about identifying when a quarterback is that guy, I'm more impressed. The most impressive Super Bowl that you won is Montana's first compared to the rest of them. He played better than the other ones, but he played with, no disrespect to the guys that were the skilled players. Mm-hmm. He played with lesser star-studded players. Is that fair? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, our leading rusher rushed for 450 yards. Guy named Ricky Patton.
Wow, I thought Wendell Tyler would have been the guy.
No, Wendell wasn't even there. It was Ricky Patton. We had Paul Hofer, but he got hurt later in 81. Linville Elliott, Billy Ring. I mean, we had guys that were kind of workmen. They were darn good, and they were good enough, but we didn't have many big rushers on that team.
Here's where I'm going with that. Jalen's got he's got A.J. Brown. He's got Devontae Smith. He's got Barkley, like you said. He's got Goddard, and he's got that great old line. I mean, Jesus, man. What else do you want? I mean, you have pretty much an all-pro offense there. And if you can't put up, last year you almost had the same offensive group minus Barkley, but you still had a 1,200-yard back. I mean, you've got to move the chains here. You can't go 1-7 like you did down the line last year.
Yeah, Yeah, it was a great start and then kind of a fading finish for the Eagles. And you know how it works in this league. You've got a window of opportunity. I don't mean one of those worn out windows like you hear, on the shows all the times on Saturday mornings and in the morning when you get up and you watch it on TV. Oh, they've got a window of opportunity. That freaking window's a portal, and it's not open very long. And you get teams, and suddenly you look around and you go, oh, wait a minute. That great, Love and the Packers are pretty damn good. The Niners found themselves a quarterback. They're pretty doggone good. And you talked about the NFC South, which is going to be much improved. I know a lot of people around here in Atlanta think, it's not unrealistic to expect like a 10-7, 11-6 kind of a season out of this team. So there are a lot of improving teams, and that's what not so much hurts, but the whole team. Philly's got to figure out where they're going to improve, where that incremental improvement's going to be. That's going to bring them to that NFC Championship game and that Super Bowl again.
Are the Niners the team to beat in the NFC, in your opinion, still?
I think probably. Yeah. I think their young quarterback's going to do nothing but get better. But they'd be the team to beat. I don't think there's anybody. Stafford and them with the Rams have always got that potential that they could be really, really tough. But without Aaron Donald, I think the defense is a lot different.
I mean, when does it get to a point when you sit there and look at Purdy and go like this? You think San Francisco is there right now, Randy? He's played 21 ball games. He's 17-4. He put up with the least amount of attempts with over 4,000 some odd yards. He was spectacular last year with spectacular talent. I mean, are they buying? Do you think this is the next $60 million or the first $60 million? Look what Goff's just got. I mean,
oh yeah,
Jared Goff just got $53 million annually. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's insane. I looked at my grandma and my mom and all those folks and went, just a couple decades too late, man. Hey, just a couple decades. You don't have to be superstar great anymore. You can get paid nowadays, but you think they're sold right now on it.
Yeah, and there's no reason not to. They've surrounded themselves with so much talent, and him with so much talent on both sides of the ball. There's nobody else in the NFC, I think, that stacks up, across the board roster-wise. And it'll be the same thing. If the Niners can stay healthy, they're going to be tough, and that's what got them last year at the end. They were healthy for 19 games?
Yeah.
And the 20th bit them in the butt. So it was unfortunate, but I don't see anything as far as a diminishing return on what they're getting, and they drafted pretty well for what they wanted. And I always thought that the draft was a little bit overrated. I mean, people losing their mind about a lot of things, led by our guys here in Atlanta going crazy. The reaction to Penix. Have any of you idiots watched college football? Do you guys actually see? And I know he's in the witness protection program, which means he's out west in football. But that kid is amazing, and he is going to be a stud in the NFL. Now, is there a chance he gets hurt? There's a chance everybody gets hurt. But he has got that arm. I thought the Falcons had two choices. They could move up to 3 and get themselves a quarterback there and get May, or they stay at 8 and they get Penix. And they decided to get Penix. May was he's sort of a mobile Matt Ryan. And the Falcons get a chance to get their next Michael Vick made with a quarterback that's left-handed and runs around pretty good.
Randy, but here would be my only question to you then. Okay, so you sign a guy for $200 million. You give Cousins 50-something or whatever the number is.
I think it's closer to 80 guaranteed, yeah.
80 guaranteed. He's making $45 million annually now. And you got a quarterback you just drafted that's 24. So I would say this to you. Well, how many years is he going to sit? 1, 2? I mean, by the time he gets a starting assignment, let's just say they go 2 years. That's 26. You all right with that?
I think so, personally. And they've got the luxury to do it because they've got Kirk Cousins. And they have the luxury of doing it because they've got him sitting there in case Cousins does get hurt, or the injury ends up being worse, or he gets re-injured or something. No, I mean, if you're lucky enough to be in a position where some of the great quarterbacks have been, we talk about Joe all the time. Joe didn't play much his rookie year at all.
No, Steve DeBerg.
He sat and watched Steve DeBerg. I watched one of the truly great quarterbacks over the last 20, 25 years was Steve McNair with the Titans and the Oilers. And he sat and he watched Chris Chandler get the dog beat out of him for a couple of years. And he sat there like, hey, I'm good with this. I'm learning, but I'm good. You guys, you go ahead. I think it's a huge advantage to watch and learn. Why are you in such a hurry? You really want to be the next Mac Jones?
No. I'm with you here on that. I get it here. And again, as long as they're cool sitting with it. But I want to bring this up to you here. So here are the top 8 guys. 9 is Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Bengals, Burrow, 55 million. Goff, 53. Herbert, 52.5. Lamar, 52. Hurts, 51. Murray, 46.1. Watson, 46. Cousins, 45. Why do when I look at this list, I'm not sure any one of these guys on this list are going to really ever win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. When I look at these guys and go like this, do I really see anybody on that list that could potentially close the gap and have look, somebody on this list is probably going to win one. But do you believe paying, just because the next guy's up like Goff, you're paying $53 million elite money to a really good player? I'm not saying he's awful, Randy, but I'm not saying he's Joe Burrow or he's Josh Allen or he's like Patrick Mahomes. I mean, are you all right? Or do you do what the Niners do? Hey, we had Garoppolo in here. We got Purdy in here on very reasonable deals. Let me just keep rotating those guys out every 3-4 years and build my roster up. And I got a play calling head coach that knows how to develop quarterbacks. I mean, he did have an MVP in Matt Ryan. Garoppolo went to a Super Bowl. I mean, he even took Kaepernick to a Super Bowl. Is that the way to go, or is it paying these guys?
Well, I've never confused paying a quarterback with any kind of consideration as to ranking how good they are. It's been a long time, Dan, since the guys that made the most were the best players.
Yep.
Whoever's next.
I'm stuck in the old days, like when Marino and Elway and okay.
Well, whoever's next, go down that list that you're just going through and go down to about 15, 20, and you're going to see a lot of deals that are about to come up, and that name is going to pop up into that top, near that top of that. That's just the way it is now. It's stupid because it doesn't seem like it makes sense that the guys that have achieved the most would make the most. But if you're lucky and you bring up the Niners and their situation, Lynch and Shanahan have done a masterful job. And part of it's been the quarterbacks, but the other part is what they've done with that roster. When they've had a quarterback making $850 for a couple of years here, they've been able to pay guys that they couldn't pay that quarterback making $50 million. And they won't be able to do that when they get a quarterback making $50 million unless the salary cap even goes more crazy.
Brandy, I never looked at it like that, because you're right. Because remember when we were in the league, the NFL Players Association would send around a sheet of the guys who made the most money per position on what you were looking at, in case when your deals came up, we all knew who the guys were ahead of us. Well, usually the guys that were ahead of us wasn't because he was a third, fourth, or fifth-year guy. It was because he was better. I mean, those guys were just better, and they were making the majority of the money, and you see where that money was. But today, it really is more about next guy up, whether it's a defensive tackle, wide receiver, quarterback, or safety. It's different than when you and I were there.
Yeah, it's just amplified now, especially at quarterback. Not so much, people don't keep track as closely of their top 5 or top 10 at running back or receiver or, outside linebacker, pass rusher or whatnot. They know the guys they like, but they don't, league-wide, they're not that aware as they are at quarterbacks. But now it's whichever quarterback's deal comes up, he's guaranteed to be the guy at the top of that list.
I know you cover college football for CBS, and I want to Couple questions with you there. I got Georgia as the top team in the country, and I threw these teams out here as my top 5 teams on how I see it playing out this year. I got Georgia, Texas, Oregon, Ole Miss, and Ohio State as the top 5 rosters. That's how I look at it. Early part right now as we're getting ready for August 31st. That's a pretty big weekend ABC has when it comes to all the games. Georgia's still the team to beat, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I'm a big believer in Alabama. They're going to have to prove a lot without Nick. There was a list that came out yesterday that I was looking at, was the percentage of transfers or the percentage of starters still in place. And if you go through that list, it's pretty impressive, because most of the teams that lost coaches or fired coaches are going to be challenged to come back the most. I mean, the 2 that really stand out are Michigan and Alabama. You know, one goes to the NFL, one goes to ESPN. But, you know, what are you going to do? I would still not discount Alabama. I think Ole Miss has got potential to be really, really good. And they've had that potential for a while, but there's been that kind of stopper in the bottle for them they couldn't get past, and that stopper's gone.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because there's a real hatred for Chip Kelly in Philly. And I was wondering if there's a hatred for the UCLA alumni, how he left that program in a lurch. Or are you okay with how he exited that for a position? I mean, he basically downgraded the UCLA head coaching job by taking the Ohio State OC job. And to me, I couldn't believe what a slap in the face that was to a legendary program like UCLA. Is it Southern Cal? No, but I'll make this point to you. Name me another California program outside of Southern Cal that's better than UCLA's program in the state of California. You can't, and that includes Stanford. Yeah. So I would just want to get your opinion how you saw that exit by him and the way he handled it.
Yeah. You know, don't let the screen door hit you where the good Lord split you. I think it's a huge upgrade. Getting rid of him. He didn't want to recruit. He didn't want to coach. He just wanted to play with the chess pieces and, you know, be an offensive genius. Well, good. Go be an offensive genius at Ohio State, and God bless you. Because I've got nothing but good things to say about Deshaun Foster and my alma mater. I'm a big fan, and I think they've still got the potential to be really, really good. It'll be tested at the line of scrimmage, being in the Big Ten now. But not having Chip will not be a problem. There'll be a better program for it in short order.
Boy, I'll tell you, one thing that I couldn't stand about him, USC had gone through so many issues with recruiting, NCAA stuff, and Chip had an opportunity to elevate the program just with surefire hard work. And it just shows you, in my opinion, that it was a lot to do with Phil Knight up at Oregon and what he did up there, because anybody who takes that Oregon job, including Mario Cristobal, and I love Mario to death, but hey, you get the Oregon job, it's pretty easy when you don't really have to worry about anything when it comes to finances with the Duck program.
You know, Dan, when you're lazy and you're a quitter, how much are you really going to be missed?
You're not.
I don't think you are. And you've got a guy now that is excited about being there. You got a guy now that his players legitimately love. And, you know, does that count for everything in college football? It counts for something, not for everything, but it counts for something.
At least you're honest.
And it wasn't there during those days. Yeah. And at least you're honest. I mean, recruiting, who can be successful in college sports these days and not be a recruiter? Nobody. There's nobody doing it that isn't a recruiter. If you don't like recruiting, you might as well open a deli.
Right. You're in the wrong sport. Randy, did you play in front of a lot of people at the Rose Bowl? I know it's impossible to fill 100,000 people, or when you're on campus, what have you. But Chip, that thing had, like, you hear Troy Aikman making comments about it all the time, and Troy's going, what is this? There's like 15,000 people, 20,000 people at a UCLA game. When I was recruited back in the day by Terry Donahue, dude, they'd send me pictures of the Rose Bowl filled with people at those games like that. And then when I look at it, what he did with it, he completely drove the fan base away.
Yeah, I played, Dan, I'll tell you how old I am. I guess if this shows it. We played our games at the Coliseum.
Oh, wow.
But we played in front of, I think usually at least about 75.
Yeah.
And when we played SC, we get up to the, six figures. But the one game I did play in the Rose Bowl was against Ohio State, and there were 107,000 people in the stadium. So
is that when you upset them?
Yeah.
Was that John Shara quarterbacking?
Yeah, it was John Shara against Cornelius Green and Archie Griffin and Woody
They were
Hayes
number
and
one.
all that. Yeah, they were number one, and he was back-to-back Heismans. But, it's been an embarrassment for a while. I've been to a few games in the last few years at UCLA when I've had some off weekends, and it's been like I sat there and just look around and go, this must be a hell of a tailgate scene because they're all going to have to haul ass to get in here in time for the game. But there's no problem. They weren't at the tailgates. They just weren't there.
Man, I got to tell you, man, you played in a really golden age, man, when SC football and UCLA football was at the pinnacle in the West Coast because 75,000 fans for UCLA, 80,000 fans, 75,000 fans for Southern Cal. I mean, awesome stuff. Gary Cobb comes on my program every Monday, and Cobb played at Southern Cal, probably played against him a few times, and he's like, oh, my God, those UCLA and USC games, it was a who's who was in the stands. Everybody was at those games. It was insanity.
Well, it's like the Auburn, Alabama, like OU, Texas, like some of those Ohio State, Michigan. When you look into the matchups, you got kids that have been playing against each other since the 9th grade. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on back and forth. And back then, that was really prevalent. And now, plus, remember, I only got hard recruited by 3 or 4 teams really east of the Mississippi. Notre Dame, Nebraska, Alabama, and Texas, who's not east of the Mississippi, but that was it. And I was in Southern California, and I had a fairly good reputation in high school, and they just didn't recruit that much. Now, I mean, you look at everybody. Where does everybody go to get their skill players? Sure, they go to Southern California. They get their quarterbacks out of there, and the receivers out of there, and the running backs out of there.
Well, I'll tell you what, Randy, I got to tell you a real quick recruiting story. So I did go to SC and UCLA on a trip, and so I go to Westwood. I'm like, there's a country club in here. Is that the West? Look at that country club. He goes, yeah, well, let me just say this to you. If you don't have some figures in your bank account, you ain't getting in there. The place was gorgeous. Then this guy McGee takes me around, who was the AD at Southern Cal, and I go, why is the tarp up? Why is there a tarp up? He goes, well, we kind of keep everything in. Player comes over to me, goes, Watts is on the other side of that tarp. And I went like this. What? I said, wait a minute. So the other guy's got a country club, and you got Watts on the other side of you.
Yeah. Well, see, SC solved that problem over a course of about 20 years. They bought the neighborhood up. Now they've got a buffer zone.
It's a moat. Hey, hey, Randy, thank you so much for always checking in, man. I love talking with you, brother. Have a great one.
No problem, man. All right. Thank you, Dan.
You got it. Our friend Randy Cross, 3-time Super Bowl champion, works for CBS Sports too. We really appreciate it. Please hit the like button. Brian Baldinger will join us at 5:30 Eastern. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.